April 8th, 1997. The federal ADX Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. The most secure in the United States. Without warning, 3 inmates jump a 4th, kicking the man and stabbing him with homemade knives. Prison justice is being carried out. The inmate being beaten has gotten himself on the wrong side of the Aryan Brotherhood, one of the most powerful and notorious gangs in the history of U.S. prisons. Their calling card is violence.
Prison gangs are the top of the food chain. In the predator world, the criminal world, prison gangs make the rules.
The Aryan Brotherhood is the Cadillac of white prison gangs.
Its members live and die by a simple code. Blood in, blood out.
No one can put their hands on a brother or disrespect a brother. If they do, you kill them.
In the brutal culture of prisons, violence is the norm. And for more than 4 decades, the Brotherhood has been among the worst offenders. Now, rarely seen video reveals the savagery of America's most murderous prison gang as former members spill their secrets.
You had to be vicious. If you took a guy out and just butchered his ass in front of everybody, other people seen that and they didn't want it happening to them.
Blood in, blood out, man. You gotta wet your steel.
40 years after its birth, the tentacles of the Brotherhood reach far beyond prison walls.
The hand of the AV could reach out and snuff your life out.
In prison, violence erupts without warning. It is part of daily life.
Most men would have a thought in the back of their mind as to whether they could take it, whether they could survive.
When you go into prison, everyone's checking you out. In prison, eye contact is for only 2 reasons. Either we're in love or we're gonna fight.
Violence got the message across like nothing else could. You could talk till you were blue in the face, but the thing they did understand, particularly in a controlled environment where you can't get away, was violence.
At the heart of this brutality are the gangs that dominate American prisons. One of the most infamous is the Aryan Brotherhood. Though small in numbers and outmanned in the yards, Aryan Brotherhood members have carried out contract killings, dominated the drug trade, and intimidated the most notorious inmates to enter the system.
We're talking about a whole bunch of personalities that are alpha dogs, okay? And they all want to be the biggest and baddest guy on the yard. They have huge egos.
You make an example, and you do it publicly, in the light of day. If it comes to it, you'll run them down into the warden's office. You'll butcher them on the warden's desk. If the warden gets in the way, you'll butcher him too. His parakeet gets in the way, you'll kill that too. That's how the Aryan Brotherhood function, through terror.
The Brotherhood's unequaled use of brute force has been a trademark throughout its history, which begins in the yards of California's oldest penitentiaries. This is Folsom Prison in Represa, California, just outside of Sacramento. It's home to about 4,100 inmates and one of the birthplaces of the Aryan Brotherhood. Built by convict labor in 1880, this was one of America's first maximum security prisons. From the beginning, races mixed freely in the yard here, and by all accounts, with relative peace for the first 80 years. That all changed in the tumultuous 1960s, when rival gangs, including the AB, began competing for power. Today, Folsom's yard is a patchwork of races and ethnicities.
No filming the animals!
These guys like to segregate themselves on this yard by race. Off to my left, if you see the inmates over here, this is our white area. Over here, you'll have your skinheads. You'll have your peckerwoods, and you'll have just your white inmates. And then off to the right, you'll have your, a portion of the yard where the Southerners are, the Southern Mexicans from Southern California. The Serranos is what we call them.
There are at least 8 different gangs represented on this yard today. tension is the norm. This friction laid the groundwork for the Aryan Brotherhood's rise to power. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, racial tensions were flaring up across the country. They would soon hit American penitentiaries. Behind prison walls, race riots took a particularly brutal turn. In this climate, groups like the Mexican Mafia, which modeled itself after the Italian Mafia, and the Black Guerrilla family, with ties to the Black Panthers, thrived. These gangs came together along color lines.
And no one man can stand alone in the system. You got to side up with somebody. So usually side up by your race.
And race is an especially strong thing in prison. If you want to hang out with a black guy, we're going to kill you. You're not going to hang out with those guys and work out with those guys, we're going to kill you. You know, everybody sticks to their own.
By the late 1960s, white inmates were forming gangs of their own throughout the California prison system. Some, like the Nazi lowriders, were vocal white supremacists, proud to display the symbols of so-called white power and to show off their firepower. But the toughest of these gangs would come together in Folsom and San Quentin prisons. There, white inmates decided on the name the Aryan Brotherhood.
The Aryan Brotherhood was one of the first gangs that had the blood in, blood out oath. That meant to get into the gang, to become a member, you had to shed somebody's blood. And there's no retirement plan. You just couldn't say, I want out, because they would kill you.
Few details about their earliest days are known, but growing in the shadows of the penitentiaries, the Brotherhood soon establishes its violent reputation, launching vicious attacks against blacks and Hispanics, and leaving a bloody trail in their wake.
And some of these pictures you'll see are, people, the victims, and after the stabbings, after the fact, and everything, like the throat slit here.
They end up hitting the guy with a shank.
Some of these crude but deadly weapons have been preserved in the Folsom Prison Museum. By 1970, the Aryan Brotherhood was a force within the 30-foot-high walls of Folsom. The gang managed to stay off the radar of prison officials, but it was eyeing new talent. 3 decades ago, Michael Thompson was a young inmate landing in the state pen for the first time, serving a life term for murdering a drug dealer. New inmates are called fish, and Thompson was a big one, standing 6'4" and weighing 285 pounds.
I had huge gills, green gills, and was extremely naive about the way things were and how things operated. Well, this is the big house. And this is where the big boys play.
Soon after he arrives at Folsom, Thompson is called out by members of the Black Guerrilla family. He's told to come to the yard prepared to fight.
I cut myself a piece of metal and I made a knife, and it wasn't a very good knife. And you have to keister stash this. You have to secrete it in your rectum. So I'm standing out in the yard trying to bring this knife out of my rectum, and it's not coming. Finally, I have to lay down on the ground and start rubbing my stomach.
Thompson is able to remove the blade and attack his opponents, leaving one badly wounded.
When you engage in what we're talking about here, a knife fight, and you're driving up on a man and you feel that knife enter his body, and that air comes out of him, and you feel that energy drain, it changes your life forever. I don't care who you are.
Thompson says he is soon approached by a man named T.D. the Hulk Bingham. Bingham is one of the leaders of the Aryan Brotherhood at Folsom. He is impressed with Thompson's size and fighting skills.
My naivete prevented me from understanding what was occurring here. These were the heavies of the Aryan Brotherhood, and they wanted me to join their group.
Thompson takes the brothers up on their offer. That means a crash course in the ways of the Brotherhood and its means of maintaining power.
They called me Young Mike back then. And they look to build you up. They look to take and set you up like this and make you feel good, make you feel proud, and make you feel like you're a part of. And of course, all of us are looking for that, particularly in prison.
The men of the Brotherhood are branded with tattoos like these, showing their loyalty to the gang. Nazi swastikas, SS lightning bolts, and Viking symbols. But the most powerful symbol of an Aryan brother was the shamrock, often drawn with the numbers 666 woven into it.
The shamrock was used by St. Patrick in Ireland to teach the Druids the Trinity. The 666, of course, is the beast of Scripture. So the 666 within the shamrock was to represent an organization that was diametrically opposed to everything that St. Patrick taught by way of Catholicism or otherwise.
The gang had other nicknames: AB, Alice Baker, The Tip, 1-2. But the most common was the brand, taken from Western novels by Louis L'Amour.
A lot of them were fascinated by the outlaws that existed in the Wild West period. And those outlaws would fight for a brand, for the brand that their rancher had on the cattle. So their nickname, because they were this gunslinger attitude, was the brand.
Thompson and the brand were only beginning their violent reign through America's toughest prisons. No one was safe, not inmates or even corrections officers. The brand attacked anyone who stood in their way.
It was extreme, it was extraordinary. It was unlike anything that you saw anywhere else. When you killed a man, you cut his head off and kicked it down the walkway to instill fear in individuals.
In prison, inmates' lives are controlled by the turn of an officer's key. Precautions like handcuffs and waist chains are especially critical when gang members are involved. Gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood have made escape from restraints into an art form.
Any convict worth his salt is going to have access to a handcuff key, anything that can open a set of handcuffs. An inmate showed me, an Aryan Brotherhood guy, that you could put it in your nose and sniff it up, and it goes into your nasal cavity. So guards can search you all they want and never find it.
It's just something as simple as a comb. You got the ratchet on the cuff itself, and that's all you're simply doing is releasing the ratchet on the cuff. So you can do that. See the corner of the comb here? You got the cuffs on, and you just take and you slide that down in behind the ratchet, and it releases it. That's why guards are instructed to always double lock their cuffs.
So cuffs aren't really a restraining device, they're just a temporary deterrent. They give you a few seconds to react to them coming out of those cuffs.
Techniques like these have allowed inmates to take violent revenge on enemies, despite the presence of handcuffs, guards, and guns. They also allowed the Aryan Brotherhood to dominate prisons for decades, and gave them such power that the most feared man in America came to them for protection. 1972. Charles Manson is transferred to Folsom Prison from San Quentin's death row after the California Supreme Court declares the death penalty unconstitutional.
Are you sane? Sane? That's relative.
Manson arrives afraid, fearing attacks by black inmates. He wants to join the AB for protection. The brand says no. Despite their violent reputation, the Aryan Brotherhood does have a code of honor.
The crime that Manson committed were offensive to the Aryan Brotherhood. Sharon Tate had a baby in her body. That is one of the rules. You don't kill children. You don't kill innocent people.
Even with their contempt for his crimes, Michael Thompson and the brand look at Manson and see dollar signs. Thompson says they began using Manson's cult of women followers to smuggle in contraband.
So you keep Charlie close and you keep him under your wing and you keep him protected because you have access to his girls who have access to the weapons and things that you want, including drugs.
The Brotherhood smuggling operation is almost derailed. Michael Thompson claims Folsom officials installed metal detectors, but he says he found a way to beat them using a special weave of electrical tape.
So I had them wrap these weapons with this specific weave and secrete them in their vagina and come into Folsom and visit us and give them to us in the visiting room. And then we would keister stash them in our rectum and take them back in. Pretty soon we were fighting with buck knives as opposed to old scrap iron off the bunk.
By the mid-1970s, the brand began extending its reach out of the California prison system and into the federal system.
Some of them deliberately committed federal crimes, and then they did that on purpose to continue their recruiting in the federal system. The most popular was bank robbery.
Inmates carry the brand to hardcore pens like Leavenworth in Kansas and the nation's highest security federal penitentiary in Marion, Illinois. A bank robber by the name of John Greshner was sent there in 1976. Born in Minnesota, he has spent most of his life in juvenile halls and prisons, including a 20-year sentence for armed robbery.
I'm an outlaw, man. I'm involved in criminal activity. That's what I do. My forte is armed takeover robberies. I mean, that's my bread and butter. But I do a lot of things. I sell dope, I run guns, I do whatever. Wherever there's money, that's what I would do.
Soon, Greshner is introduced to brand members streaming into the system. He is wooed by Barry the Baron Mills, a commissioner and one of the highest-ranking members with the federal section of the AP. The commission is a new development for the Brotherhood, which had once been run as a collective.
It was cumbersome. Everyone had an equal vote, and soon members of the Aryan Brotherhood leadership realized that they had to streamline this.
The brand develops a hierarchy. Barry Mills and T.D. Bingham will command the newly formed federal faction of the brand. A four-man commission, including Michael Thompson, heads the California state leadership. At Marion, Mills begins schooling Greshner in the ways of the brand, beginning with a simple rule.
The Aryan Brotherhood comes first, above all things, above even your own life, above your family, your loved ones, country, God, anything. The Aryan Brotherhood comes first.
Greshner is introduced to other gang members while at Marion, one of whom is terrible Tommy Silverstein. Silverstein will soon show just how powerful the Aryan Brotherhood has become. They can do what once seemed impossible: kill a corrections officer in prison despite being handcuffed.
Tommy was having a beef with the CO Klutz, Merle Klutz. They just got into this personal trip. And I knew Klutz for like 9-10 years before. I used to work for him on the Unicourt here. Klutz was okay. But him and Tommy got into this personal thing. Tommy started talking about killing him.
A talented artist, Silverstein is upset that Officer Klutz had taken away his drawing pencils. He begins plotting his revenge. On October 22nd, 1983, Silverstein is led from his daily shower to his cell by Klutz and two other guards. As they walk, Silverstein leans against a cell, and another inmate uses a homemade key to unlock his cuffs. In seconds, Silverstein's hands are free. He pulls a 10-inch blade from the waistband of his accomplice and turns on Officer Klutz.
Tommy stepped out, boom, 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 hit Klutz like 37, 38 times, killed him.
A few hours later, in another part of the prison, AB member Clayton Fountain pulls the same move, stabbing 3 guards, killing 1.
And his answer to why he did that was, I didn't want Silverstein to have a bigger body count than me.
It was the first time in the history of the federal prison system that 2 guards had been killed on the same day. And it happened in the most secure prison in the U.S. The message was clear. No one can stop the brand.
They are going to continue to kill, even from their isolated cells within the prison system. There's no safe place.
For some inmates, the battles that erupt in the yard are a means of revenge, an expression of brute force. For the men in the Aryan Brotherhood, or AB, this violence was part of something bigger. And in the 1980s, they began to see themselves as more than just racist thugs. They envisioned building a criminal enterprise that would conduct white-collar crimes like ID theft and extortion. Still, in 1983, there were only about 100 AB members in the California prison system, out of around 35,000 inmates. They controlled prisons in part through intensive training. The Brotherhood immersed its new recruits in the way of the brand, supplying reading lists, prepping them for battle, and instilling in them a warrior mentality.
They read Nietzsche, Sun Tzu, The Art of War, The Prince, Machiavelli. These guys read these things. They're intelligent people.
You had to be, if not smarter than everybody else, you damn sure had to seem smarter than everybody else.
Bob Overton first heard of the Aryan Brotherhood while he was in prison in Oklahoma, serving a life sentence for murder.
I would see these guys and I'd say, yeah, well, you know, they're smart, they're personable, they're in top shape, good physical condition, they're strong, command respect. Well, you want to be like that.
The brand was impressed with Overton's military background.
It's like a courtship you're seduced in, you know. And I mean, the brother that first met me actually wrote me poems, battle poems, you know, about you, about your life. They listen to what you've done, where you've been, and writing these things. And, you know, they're helping you, they're educating you.
As a brother, he was groomed to be a more efficient killer.
We studied Gray's Anatomy, anything, you know, so you would know exactly where and how to kill someone when you needed to.
But this schooling wasn't for every white inmate. Only a few were considered worthy to wear the shamrock tattoo.
I could get 20 guys that been in the fire, been on those battlefields, and you could get 1,000 guys that are just scrap, just dudes talking the talk but not really walking the walk, and them 20 guys will just decimate them.
In the 80s, though, as the brand's power increased, this warrior culture was threatened. A rift developed within the Brotherhood. The trouble began when the brand began to enforce its rules with hits not just on inmates, but on those outside prison walls. 1983, Southern California. The AB is seeking payback against an inmate named Steve Barnes. He snitched on a fellow brand member and agreed to testify against him. They can't get to him, so they have Barnes' father killed instead.
That sent a message that, you know, if you don't toe the line for us, if we can't get you, we'll get your family.
Their policy prior to this had been, it was okay to kill another convict. It's not okay to kill somebody's children or parents. So a split occurred.
Richard Valdemar, working with the LA County Sheriff's Department, hears of this split and sees an opportunity. Over the next 10 years, Valdemar and other law enforcement officials approached several brand members. Some of them agreed to talk.
They would have came after my mother, my grandmother, those people that I cared about. So here I am.
In these once confidential videotapes, the men say that the AB are not just going after enemies, they're going after too many of their own.
They'll kill me whenever they get a chance.
The leader who is most upset with the shift in philosophy is Brand Commissioner Michael Thompson.
It may sound a little bizarre to say that, you know, there are values and ethics associated with even a criminal enterprise.
Thompson is still troubled by the decision to murder Steve Barnes' father, a civilian.
When that first came up, it was, let's kill his child. Let's kill his wife. Let's kill his mother and his father. So, whoa, 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 do you hear yourselves? This is what being a warrior is about to you? So I said, I'm gonna step away.
Michael Thompson has made a decision that puts his life at risk. He begins cooperating with Valdemar. When he does, Thompson is breaking the brand's #1 rule, turning against his brethren. There's no going back. As seen in these tapes, Thompson spills the secrets of the Brotherhood's inner workings.
You had either just the Shamrock, just the AD, and oftentimes you'll see all this, or part of it camouflaged into other tattoos.
Okay,
Say if you have a collage on your arm,
correct.
if you look, sometimes you'll see 3 6s collaged in. And those are the type of things you want to look for.
Then I would lecture about how to beat the metal detector, about the philosophy and psychology associated with gangs in general, about how to make a weapon, about manipulation of staff, things like that.
During the debriefings, Thompson makes a startling admission. The Brotherhood's focus was changing from being a gang that ruled through terror to using terror to make money.
We saw the Hells Angels doing it. We saw them making money. We saw the Mexican Mafia do it and making money. Why shouldn't the Aryan Brotherhood?
And despite this rift, the brand did make money. The gang was expanding into new kinds of crime, including armed robbery and prostitution, all from inside prison.
We started approaching it from the idea of a business, and that had value, and I understood that. So we began to restructure the organization.
By the early 90s, the brand was running drug trafficking rings inside the country's most notorious prisons. It was reported that at Leavenworth in Kansas, over 1,200 inmates tested positive for heroin in 1995. At Pelican Bay State Prison in California, AB member Bob Overton was in charge of dealing drugs on one of the yards.
If anybody on the yard was bringing any drugs on the yard, we were to get our cut from the business. It entailed keeping race relations with the other races. You know, if there was a problem between the whites and the blacks or the whites and the Mexicans, whoever the problem was, you would mediate.
But no gang, even the AB, can keep peace on the yard all the time. Pelican Bay State Prison in Crescent City. Violence explodes between rival black and Hispanic gang members in 2000. Guards set off tear gas and fire rubber bullets in hopes of bringing order. But the 200-man riot erupts for nearly 30 minutes. Dozens of inmates are injured, and one is killed, mortally wounded by a prison guard's gunshot. Afterward, officers collect more than 50 inmate-made weapons from the scene. It was one of the most violent riots ever to erupt at Pelican Bay. For the Aryan Brotherhood, this kind of disorder only disrupted business.
We weren't looking to have wars out there because that would take the program from us. It would slow any business down that was coming in.
Getting drugs into a maximum security prison is no small task, so the Brotherhood used every possible means at its disposal.
Oh, drugs come in a lot of ways. Drugs come in through visiting rooms, drugs come in through cops. And it's lucrative. It's a lucrative market.
Often, the Brotherhood relied on third parties who weren't known gang members so they could receive drugs more easily.
What I do is I use cutouts. And what happens is packages are sent to their visitors, they bring it in, give it to somebody else, they get it to me, they get their cut. And then I don't even deal it either. I mean, I don't get involved in distributing, sales, or anything. I get it to somebody else, they chop it up, paper up, all that. They get so much. For so many they sell, they get so much of the proceeds and all that. And everybody else handles it.
Narcotics help fund the criminal enterprise, as did their protection racket. And the brand would watch over one of America's most notorious crime bosses. Little did he know that he was being set up for a high-priced shakedown. Corcoran State Prison in California's Central Valley, 170 miles north of Los Angeles. Once infiltrated by the Aryan Brotherhood, Corcoran is still home to several white gangs. This is the mess hall. Inmates get 2 hot meals a day and a bagged lunch. Officers pat down the inmates as they leave the mess hall, checking for weapons, contraband, and fruit, which can be used to make pruno.
You know, sometimes we looking for weapons, drugs, inmate manufactured alcohol.
Today, members of the Investigative Services Unit, or ISU, are searching the cell of an inmate.
131.
They first remove the man and temporarily place him in the shower cell.
And these inmates have 24 hours to hide anything. So we got to beat them at what they do in 8 hours of our shift.
These officers go through every inch of the inmate's cell.
These particular ones have a little button right here which you can remove, in which they can hide contrabands inside the TV itself without breaking the seal. Right here would be fishing line, which we consider contraband. Inmates would take this, they would attach an object on this end, throw it under the door, exchange information, food, weapons with a fishing line. Sometimes you come across small items like this that you have to look for a piece of heroin the size of a match head.
As part of their efforts to neutralize gangs at Corcoran, officers with the ISU have collected examples of weapons and drugs confiscated from inmates.
This was cereal, and what they're doing is they get boxes of cereal and break a piece of cereal, put a small bundle of heroin or methamphetamine in, and coat it back with the cereal and glue it and put them back in the box, reseal it, and send it in. If you were to purchase an ounce of heroin on the streets, you can purchase it anywhere from around $800 to $1,000. You can turn around and sell that ounce of heroin inside Corcoran State Prison for anywhere from $30,000 to $36,000.
For the Aryan Brotherhood, drugs were a long-standing source of cash. Protection was another, and a lot simpler than smuggling drugs. Pay the AB and get security from other prisoners. Among the Brotherhood's most high-profile clients was the Teflon Don, John Gotti. In 1996, Gotti was serving a life sentence without parole at the federal penitentiary at Marion when he was approached by the Brotherhood.
John wasn't no punk. John was standing on his own feet. You gotta remember something. John came up in the streets, but John was alone. Now, John left his world, now he's in our world. And this is our world. Make no mistake about that. We run this world.
After 2 years of kicking more than $50,000 in protection money to the AB, Gotti decided that he had enough of his own foot soldiers in custody to protect him. He was wrong.
When he stopped paying protection, the Aryan Brotherhood employed the services of someone associated with the Black Guerrilla family, an African-American, and had that African-American assault Gotti.
Gotti is attacked in the yard and asks the AB to reinstate his protection and to kill his attacker.
He was farming out to any white groups that could pick it up, but specifically the AB. He wanted this guy hit.
Gotti dies of throat cancer before the hit is ever carried out. Some believe the brand never intended to do the deed. Instead, the gang was flexing its muscle, fleecing the one-time head of the Gambino crime family. Underlying the Brotherhood's operations is a complex system of communications. At Corcoran, officers John Lunas and David Gomez monitor and disrupt the chatter between gang members.
What we have here is what we call kites. And what they do is, these are a means of communicating. Well, the reason why these particular kites are in an envelope was that because these kites were transported from another institution in the rectum of an inmate.
But they don't write one kite. If one guy comes down, it's not like we send one letter. They'll send 4 or 5 or 6 different of the same notes. That way, if we catch one, the chances are out of one of those 5 or 6, one's going to get to the guy.
Another means of communication dates back decades.
So I'd get on the phone, talk to him through the toilet. You pump the water out of the toilets, and you talk through the pipes. It's just as good as Ma Bell. I mean, so we get party lines and everything going. It's all cool, right?
They also send messages written with invisible ink.
I used to call hit and miss, the old slang term hit and miss, which meant piss. Literally piss, urine. And you write in it, and when you heat it up, it turns brown.
But the most complex correspondence for the AB is drawn from a 16th century philosopher named Sir Francis Bacon. The Baconian or biliteral cipher is a complicated code using 2 different alphabets to mask a single message. Printed letters are assigned an A, while letters written in cursive are given a B. The different combinations of A's and B's represent letters of the alphabet. In this code, BBBAA equals the letter C, while AAABB represents the letter O. The result, confirm message. These codes kept the Aryan Brotherhood alive for decades. They also helped the federal government bring the most wide-ranging indictment ever against them. November 1998. Racial tensions boil over at the ADX Supermax in Florence, Colorado. Aryan Brotherhood leader T.D. Bingham joins this fistfight against members of the DC Blacks prison gang. This prison surveillance video would come back to haunt Bingham. In March 2006, it became evidence against him in federal court as he stood trial for murder and conspiracy with 3 other members of the Brotherhood's leadership. It was the government's attempt to punish a group of self-avowed outlaws who were already behind bars. But this time, they would face the most severe punishment: death by lethal injection. For decades, prison officials tried to break up the Aryan Brotherhood and failed. Now, prosecutors turned to a federal racketeering statute known as RICO. Under it, any member of a criminal organization would be liable for any crime that the organization carries out. In the case of the AB, prosecutors filed a 10-count indictment in 2002 against 40 brand members. Everything from extortion and drug dealing to multiple murders.
The government had to prove that there was a criminal enterprise that operated with the goal of being murder, extortion, drug trafficking, and that the defendants were members of that enterprise.
At the first of several trials, 4 top AB leaders went before the jury in March 2006. Christopher Gibson, Edgar Helve, and the men in charge of the Federal AB Commission, T.D. Bingham and Barry Mills. Federal prosecutor Terry Flynn introduced thousands of pieces of evidence against them, including assaults and murders, captured on videotape. The most graphic, this video, shot by a corrections officer at the Supermax. In it, Christopher Gibson and 2 associates carry out a vicious assault on an inmate named Michael Nevergall.
The Nevergall videotape depicts Christopher Gibson and 2 Mexican Mafia members stabbing an inmate in the ADX. It's a rather horrific video, and you can see Gibson and the other ones kicking and stabbing the inmate as he is lying in the middle of the rec yard.
Stabbed more than a dozen times, Nevergall barely survives the knife attack. After the video was introduced, prosecutors continued laying out their evidence, utilizing the Brotherhood's secret records. 2 key documents confiscated from an AB leader's cell in Marion Prison bolstered the case.
They're what I like to call the mission statements of the Aryan Brotherhood. Documents that detail how the Aryan Brotherhood will operate.
This one, written in 1993, reveals the intricate details about the brand. First, it clearly states the AB's intention. Our primary goal is to transform us from a dysfunctional prison gang into a viable and productive criminal organization. Then, it lays out the structure of commission, council, businessmen, and enforcers. Finally, the document reveals the gang's pledge. The AB asks for your mind, heart, and life. Do you give us that? The new member responds, I pledge my mind, heart, and life to the AB. Then, prosecutors turn the brand's own secret communication against it. They present the most damning evidence, a letter written in the complex biliteral code. It begins with the word Bubba and appears to congratulate an AB member on the birth of a baby. When prosecutors crack the code, they realize it's a call for a race war against the brand's nemesis, the DC Blacks prison gang.
The defendants had worked out a code for murder, baby boy versus baby girl. If it was going to be a baby boy, meant that it was going to be war with the DC Blacks.
A letter sent from the AB leadership deep within the walls of the Colorado Supermax led to the murder of 2 African Americans at the federal prison in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. The jury finds the 4 leaders guilty of murder, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit racketeering. But after 5 days of deliberation, jurors can't agree on a sentence. The judge declares a mistrial. The default sentence, life in prison. But all 4 men are already serving life sentences. Immediately after the trial, Flynn calls the case a success, saying it proves that the government will go after violent prison inmates. Others view the outcome as a failure.
What deterrent is a life sentence? Absolutely nothing. They're already doing life. Prison is their home. This is the environment they thrive in. So it's not a punishment.
We needed the death penalty to send a message to the others. We take the murder of other inmates and staff and civilians serious.
As a result of the 2002 indictment against the brand, all known members have been rounded up and placed in the most restrictive housing units. Officials believe they have the Aryan Brotherhood under control, for now. But they have no way of knowing which gang might become the next AB. Today, a bus full of inmates pulls up at Corcoran State Prison, one of California's most secure penitentiaries. These men are the newest arrivals. They're about to experience how the state is working to control prison gangs. Their destination is the Secure Housing Unit, or SHU.
Yeah, it's for the bad guys, meaning that they got in trouble somewhere along the line inside of the prison. So now we need to further secure them even more.
To earn your way into the SHU, you've either assaulted someone in the general population, are a known gang member, or both.
A lot of gang members in the SHU? Probably the majority of them.
This is a rare glimpse inside the SHU. A prison within a prison, it's where the most problematic inmates are housed. And this is what yard time is like for a Corcoran SHU inmate. The only time they spend outside their cell is in a steel cage. Less human contact means less likelihood of murders and other crimes.
You're looking at it, you know what I mean? We get about 3 hours out here every other day. That's about it, you know what I mean? Other than that, you get your 3 meals a day and a 5-minute shower. That's it. You got 5 minutes. The rest of the time, you just sit in your cell and read, you know what I mean? Do what you can to try and maintain your sanity.
The Corcoran SHU can handle more than 1,000 inmates, and it often reaches capacity. For California AB members, they either serve their time in the SHU or cooperate with authorities and live out their years as protected inmates, but also as marked men. John Greshner and Bob Overton have spent most of their adult lives behind bars, but their willingness to turn on the Brotherhood has earned them points with authorities and a chance at parole. It's unknown if that will ever really happen. They say that they have stayed out of trouble on the inside, and they have a cautionary message.
If you stay in a gang, you're going to jail. Don't think you're the exception to the rule. Nobody's the exception to the rule. You know, I used to think all this stuff happened, yeah, him, that happens to them. It don't happen to me. Oh, it happens to you, too. It happens to everybody.
You know, this prison system is no glamour in here. There's nothing to bring somebody here. This is not a life. This is just an existence.
Michael Thompson lives a slower life compared to his days as a self-described AB warrior 30 years ago. Today, he talks of avoiding conflicts in the yard, but he speaks with a quiet, ominous warning.
So now I go out to this yard here, and I got some drunk that rides up on me, and he squares back, and he says, doubles up his fist, and he says, "Do we have a problem?" I'm thinking, I said, "No, sir, we don't." And I turn around and I walk away. See, that's part of my evolution. But little does he know. He said I could crush his face.